Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Oil Motorsports. My name's Ian and thanks for stopping by. Whether you're a first-time viewer or a long-time viewer, I appreciate your continued support. Today, we're working on this 1991 Mazda Miata, which I have just put a butt ton of work doing the quarter panel, the rocker panel, wide body kit, doing it the way I thought was right, and painting it. Now, it's all together and looks fantastic from about 5 feet away. Now, this tired 1.6 liter is screaming bloody murder. Now why? Well, it's completely stock besides the fact that there is a ISR turbocharger and a turbo kit that I made when I was, I guess I was about 17, 18 years old. So time to improve on that. If we want this thing to survive going around a track for 20 minutes, it needs cooling. Okay, if you can't keep an engine cool, well, it's gonna blow up. It is what it is. Oil vaporizes and kablooey. Let's try to make this thing not do that. So we've got a coolant reroute kit. I'll go over that in a minute for what that all entails, and a SuperMiata cross-flow radiator. Apparently one of the best ones on the market. I'm not really too sure. I've done some research and well, we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Only temperature will tell. So without further ado, let's get unboxing some parts. I'll show you how to replace the radiator and then show you how to do the coolant reroute with the motor still in the car. There will be a lot of swearing, there'll be a lot of frustration, maybe a couple tears, and definitely some bloody hands. So stay tuned, let's get into it. So here, believe it or not, should be the radiator. Just have a hunch here that that's what's in this box. I don't know why I would think that, but I think from some context clues here, we can figure that out. Oh, everything's in this box. Very nice. So, we have, whoops, SuperMiata's super radiator. Isn't that just super? I can get this thing out of the plastic wrap here. Need that razor blade again. We can see just how super it is. Ooh, shiny. So this, if I remember correctly, is their 3-row model, which means it is thick as frick, and also, ooh, that's nice. Look at that. It says SuperMiata on it. It's pretty cool. Isn't that super? Yeah, I think so. So, super thick, compare the OEM one. I'll compare it when I get the other one out of the vehicle. Comes with all the brackets and everything that a fellow might need for mounting some fans. And I mean, it's really not too much more to it. It's a radiator. Okay, so what do we get here? We got a super stat. What's so super about it? For the SuperMiata radiator. I don't know, it's just the brand. It's from Stance. It's a thermostat, no big deal there, nothing super crazy. We got this beautifully machined, so I can open up this packaging, water neck that goes on the back of the block. It comes with 2 different ports, actually 3 different ports. This is most likely for the engine thermostat. This is for a heater core nipple to get threaded into there, and that's probably for an aftermarket temp sensor. So we got that stuff. We've got, you know, really nice machining. Orange is not really what I would choose, but it's the only color it came in. So that's what we're doing. Then we have the actual water neck, which this is what the thermostat's gonna sit into, and you know, kiss right there. That's fine. Okay. We've got, they gave us some gasket maker. That's kind of nice. And, uh-oh, there's a snap ring in there. I don't know what that's for. But they give us all the hardware and stuff for the hoses. And everything else. What else we got? I hope I know how this stuff all goes together. Or there's some instructions in that box that I missed. Because otherwise, this could be a long video of me fumbling through all this. There we go. Okay. That and that. Block off plate for the front. This is for... Oh, you know what this is for? This is for water lines going to my turbocharger, I would think. Or, again, two different thermostat aftermarket for aftermarket gauges, you know. It's also super. Do you know it's super? What else we got? Oh boy! Another one. Yeah. Can't wait to cut all this out. If I do cut it out. I should cut it all out, otherwise it's going to take way too much time. This is a block off plate if you put the one that goes onto, if you don't keep the OEM water neck, put this behind all the timing chain jazz, or timing belt jazz. We'll see how I do there. We got this really nice radiator hose. This is, not gonna lie, top notch. You can see that it is lined on the inside. Very nice. Very flexible. I mean, you can look, it's not even kinked yet. Well, it's starting to kink, and I'm already turned around 180 degrees. Really high quality hose. Don't know what brand it's from, because I wish I could buy that stuff by the roll. Super nice. What else we got here? We got some line. We got some other stuff, other miscellaneous hardware, just some hose clamps and jazz, so don't need to show you guys all that. But other than that, that's it. That's all we got here.
Hey, it's Ian from the future here, realizing I never explained what the heck the coolant reroute is. So with pictures from 949 Racing, let me explain it real quick. Start from the radiator, following the blue line to the mixing manifold. Most of the coolant actually goes in the front of the block and exits the front of the head. The stuff that goes to the back just goes to the heater core, back to the mixing manifold, and actually bypasses the radiator. So cylinder 4 in the back does get pretty hot. Once we go to the coolant reroute, we can actually see that the main coolant path then ends up going from the front of the block all the way to the back, which then, with their thermostat housing, brings all the coolant back around to the radiator. The stuff that goes to the heater core and back to the mixing manifold, well, what that's supposed to do is help with cold starts and help the engine warm up faster. But with most of the coolant ending up going across the block, that means more even temperatures and hopefully a happier engine. Let's get this thing installed.
Okay, so what's the first step here? Quite obviously, let's open up our hood. May vary by what vehicle you have, but there's our radiator. What's holding it in, you ask? Well, really, not too much. I still have stock fans and everything else. Let me get you in here. You can't really see over there. What was I thinking? So what's going on in here? Really? It's nothing too crazy. We got, you know, upper radiator hose, lower radiator hose. We got some fans. I still have stock ones. Surprise, surprise. Other than that, nothing too crazy. So we will take and remove the radiator by loosening up that bracket, and as well as, can't really see it, no my light on my head, but there's another bracket down there similar to that one, and then the whole thing just kind of lifts up.
I stand corrected. The way the radiator mounts on the bottom is actually with this kind of bracket right here, just a bushing that clips into this. It's been a long time since I've had this radiator out, so yeah, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna mount this new one now. But that being said, this is an OEM Miata radiator. If you've never drained the coolant on a Miata radiator, you can see right here on the bottom, this right here is what's called a petcock. Now what it's supposed to be is a Phillips head screwdriver that you just unscrew this little plastic bolt right here, and the coolant will come out. Now, what a lot of people don't know is how to do this cleanly, because when you start taking everything out of there, it comes out really fast, really quick, get all over your hands, your feet, and everything else. For me, my chest right now. But what you want to do is leave the radiator cap in right now, so that when you take this out, there's still some sort of suction on this. There still will be some water that comes out, but not that much. After you take this out and it starts draining, you use then you take off the radiator cap. God, what was that so hard to figure out? Now, the other thing, a lot of people just like to use a normal drain pan. I, on the other hand, if I go around over here, like to use a 5-gallon bucket. Now, if you don't have a 5-gallon bucket, that's okay. You can go get another bucket. If you can't get the car tall enough to get a 5-gallon bucket underneath, just chop it. You get these things for free sometimes. This was a buy one thing and get a free bucket sale. So, since I have my car tall enough to be able to get this underneath there, right on the petcock, I'm just gonna get a screwdriver in there and yeah, do what we gotta do. Okay, get a screwdriver in there. Hopefully we can turn this. Looks pretty stripped though. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're making that any better here. Whew, okay. Alright, we gotta go in the 5-gallon bucket. Watch the difference after I take off the radiator cap. You thought it was flowing good before. Imagine that flowing all over you when you're trying to take out that plug. It's not a good day. I'll let that drain and do what I gotta do. So on the top here, what we got's pretty easy. We've got the upper radiator hose, which for me is a 7mm because there's some aftermarket hose clamps, but normally they're like just the spring style ones. Also, if the blue hoses irritate you, don't worry, they irritate me too. They came with the car, so just been using them. I am
considering getting black ones because I'm gonna be taking them all off anyways here. Literally right now. Oops, the daisies. Some coolant will still come out of these hoses, obviously, when you're doing this because, well, it's just what happens. Then we have our 2 bolts on the sides here for our upper brackets. These, I believe, are just 12 millimeters. Should just crack right loose. There goes one on the floor. Good job, me. Come on now. There we go. Okay. Okay. Keep that up here. And then we've got our fans. All we got is just a plug right here. If you had a OEM card, it'd be kind of buried underneath the intake a little bit, but the turbocharger here opens this up a little bit. Just a plug, push this down, wiggles out. So all of this harness is connected to the radiator. The fans are connected to the radiator, they can all stay on. And then we just need to undo that lower radiator hose, and this puppy's ready to come out of here. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, so as you can see, I ended up taking off the up radiator hose. I needed to do that anyways, so no big deal. But I stuffed some rags in all the orifices because, believe it or not, I don't really like a messy workspace, and for the extra couple cents, kind of a no-brainer, but that's just me. So we should just be able to take this whole radiator here, kind of wiggle it up, on out of here. I'm caught on a harness somewhere. Right there. Well, we're out. So, it's been a while since I've been back in the garage, but here's where we left off. We've got the old radiator out. We've got it on a stand that is right next to the new radiator. We're gonna compare those real quick. We also got a set of OEM fans donated from one of my good buddies, Adam. Thank you. If you're watching, you're the best. But why haven't I been out here working on it, putting out content? Well, very simply, it's been freezing cold. It's mid-January and it has been single-digit temperatures. And for those who know what I'm talking about, if you've worked in single-digit temperatures, you know that no matter what, even with a nice heater, it's not fun. So we're getting back at it because it finally hit 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or I think that's 0 degrees Celsius at freezing. Nice. Anyways, radiators. What makes this better than that one? Well, very simply, one of the main benefits here is that we've got the horizontal fins here when this has the vertical fins. The all aluminum tank makes this better because the end tanks will actually expel heat while the plastic end tanks will end up absorbing heat. If you want more science into that, don't ask me because that's just how things work. But we also have the outlet a little bit further over to the right than what that outlet is, and that is for the reroute, because it goes around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. Now, why aren't you using these fans? Well, quite simply, I don't like how they're mounted, right? I'd have to use these zip ties, and I don't want to put them through a nice, shiny, brand new radiator. So we got some OEM ones. According to SuperMiata 949 Racing, these are fine. They'll do great. And so great that they will actually outperform those fans and apparently pull more CFMs. Again, thank you, Adam, for those. You're the best. So, this already comes with brackets for an OEM fan. So why even go through all that? Those plugs are different. I've got a plug right there. I can wire them together and make everything work. OEM, just as it's supposed to be, except I'm just gonna tie in the AC fan with the main fan, because it's just gonna make everything easier. So, let's get those fans swapped over. Let's get that radiator in the car. And I forgot to say, these end tanks come off too. These end brackets, just a couple bolts. Here and here. Let's do it. Oh. That's ice in my garage. I'm doing this for you guys. And a little bit for myself. I want to see this done, but probably not tonight. But I want to see this done. Let's do it. So while the car is all up in the air and everything, you can just take that lower radiator hose and shove it right back on. Now, why is mine off the car? Well, simply, I hated these blue hoses. When I got the car, it was blue, everything else was blue. There's even a blue shift boot, blue pedals. It was kind of, well, not my cup of tea. But here's the thing, we can fix all these things. We can do a black hose kit. Now an OEM one be better? Well, yeah, but that's, I think it was like $130 for like 3 hoses, and there's a lot of hoses on here that are blue. So I just really wanted to get some hoses that were black, just because they look better. They don't stand out, and they, well, now clash with the vehicle. So we're gonna get that blue radiator hose out of there, and the one on the top, and all the other ones, and replace them with black ones as we go along. Obviously you don't have to do that, but I am. You'll just see the end result. No more blue. Okay, we got our radiator in. We got our loader rad hose on, as you can see down there, nice and stealthy now that it's not blue like these. But next we're working on the back of the block. Not gonna be fun, it's gonna be awful, but we're gonna do our best here. And again, lots of swearing, but you guys won't hear that, or I'll bleep it out. But on a Miata, we got to take out this coil pack back here for a, this is for a 1.6.
Then we also have to take out the cam angle sensor. I'm going to try to not take that out because I don't really want to risk having that clock and then be wrong when I go to put it back in, but we will see. So 110%, got to take out that coil. So let's get it out of there. Ignition coil moved. Now let's take a look at what's actually going back here. So this is where they put the thermostat housing if this was transverse mounted for a front wheel drive vehicle instead of longitudinally mounted for a rear wheel drive vehicle. So what this really does is just takes some of the engine coolant and brings it to the heater core so that it can, you know, heat you up and everything. But there's one major problem with this. As I described before, the way the coolant goes through the motor isn't exactly efficient for something that creates a lot of heat like a turbocharger. But one thing I noticed is this clip right here, while I was cleaning back here, so you didn't just see oily mess because no one's ever cleaned back here from the many valve cover gasket leaks that this vehicle has had in its entire life. This sensor, which is the sensor that feeds the dashboard and the ECU, just kind of comes right out. Not supposed to be like that, but that's how it is. So I gotta figure out why that's going on. I might need a new sensor. They're not that expensive, but that's not great. So anyways, there's two bolts. There's two bolts that go back there, and they match up to this housing, right? So this is the part that actually gets bolted to the block. So there is a bolt hole there and a bolt hole there. So the one we're seeing is, I believe, this one. So there's gonna be one that's slightly lower adjacent to it. So, yep, that'll be great. And I think this is gonna be a lot harder. There's actually a lot of room back there. As you can see, I mean, I use medium-sized gloves, right? I mean, I kind of have small hands, so I kind of am meant to work on small cars like this. But I mean, I can fit my whole hand back there, wiggle it around, and everything else. So I think a good set of ratcheting wrenches and the electric ratchet is really gonna go a long way with this job. But we just gotta do it and figure it out. But it's getting late. I need to pick up on this again tomorrow. So let's do that. Okay, let's get into this. Next day, let's struggle. All right, so here's our culprit. Sits right on the back of the block, like so, if you're facing the vehicle, right? Coolant goes out this way. So
This blocks off the coolant and makes it go back around to come up and out the front. And then there's a little section here which takes hot coolant and goes toward the heater core. So this actually helps cool your car quite a bit. So obviously this is the hose that goes behind the block and then goes up to your heater core right over here in this area, right by your dipstick. So next thing you got to do here is scrape off the remaining gasket material from that housing. So I've got this nice long scraper here, which I found at my local auto parts store and had paint explode on it. That's great. But instead of having a razor blade, like a lot of people use, I actually use a plastic razor, we'll call it. It's just got a nice edge to it. So I'm using the plastic blade because the head is aluminum. And if you use a metal razor blade, if you're not very careful with it, you can end up scratching it. So because you gotta cram back here and get your hand in here and try to clean up as much as you can without being able to see, it's a lot easier just to be able to take and be indiscriminate with a plastic blade and know you're not gonna mar anything. So yeah, get yourself some of these. They're nice. I think Titan makes them from O'Reilly's.
Okay, so it might be hard to see or hear me. I'm not sure because I'm holding the GoPro behind the motor, but this is what we're looking at. It's pretty nice and clean back here right now. You can see there's one little nib right near that bolt hole right there. But other than that, just took the scraper, scraped it a whole bunch, and then to finish it off, just used some brake clean on a pad of red Scotch-Brite because that's what I had. So looks pretty decent. So it's gonna be a good sealing surface, and hopefully, fingers crossed here, shouldn't leak. So now we're on to the fun stuff and mellow yellow. But this is the whole kit right here, right? Obviously I've already showed this. Compared to the OEM housing, this is massive. It's gonna be kind of hard to fit this back there with everything going on. But we're not starting with this part, we're actually starting with this. This is the thermostat housing portion. This bolts onto here, right? So what we're gonna do, the one that comes with is this Stant Superstat, which is 45849. Again, this comes with the kit. This thermostat is 195 degrees, which is great for an OEM application. I am obviously not using an OEM application. So, or I guess OEM style application, OEM temperature, 195 degree thermostat. I am actually going to use a 180 degree thermostat, and I couldn't get one in time, but I just got one from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Part number that's for Murray is MU55848. The price was the same anyways. They were just able to get to me quicker. If we look at them here, they're actually, I mean, they're the exact same size, obviously. If we take a look here, funnily enough, I noticed this. They both say Motorrad on them, which means these probably come from the same exact factory. So, Stant Superstat and then the Murray Ultra are pretty much the same. You start to realize when you've been doing this for a while that a lot of the parts, even though they're in different boxes, just come from the same place. Now, these go in here just like that, right? There's no gasket, no nothing. Seems a little strange, but the way it gets held in here is actually a snap ring. And let me get it out of the pack and I'll show you how to put that in. Okay, so the internal style snap ring that we got here comes with the kit. 5DE13, 1 and 11/16 internal snap ring, right? Nothing too crazy there. We're just gonna open her up, and we're gonna use the set here of snap ring pliers, which
you can probably pick up at a local parts store. The spring faces outwards, right, towards you. Then you're gonna take and get these on your snap ring pliers. Okay, like so. Scrunch them down. Watch your fingers, because if that comes off, it's gonna hurt. Slowly bring it in, because it's a loaded gun here. Kind of jimmy it into place, I think. What am I doing wrong here? Okay, so of course the second I turn off the camera, I kind of get it halfway into place. So I'm just going to take a little screwdriver here, and there's going to be a ridge that this sits in, right? So if you just push it down a little bit, there it goes. So you can see that it is set in there because you can actually see all the way around it. It's nice and secure in there. And yes, it's a little bit loose, but coolant pressure will hold that in there, I promise you. Okay, so the next thing here it says to do is apply sealant to these two surfaces, but I'm not going to do that yet, because otherwise I'm going to end up making a mess when I'm torquing other things down here. So next thing I'm going to do here is install this brass nipple. Now what's this for? Heater hose. Goes right on there. These are NPT threads. I'm sure you can see. Maybe you can't because GoPro doesn't like focusing on things that are close. But the NPT threads are tapered, which means you tighten these down until they're snug and they create a seal. That being said, you don't really need thread sealant with these, but the instructions say to use thread sealant, so I'm going to use thread sealant. It says you can use the PTFE tape or the sealant. This stuff is great. I prefer the liquid stuff. I think it's better. But all you gotta do is first mix it up, which I did already. Maybe I had to mix it up good enough. Make sure this is mixed thoroughly before you use this. Okay, try this again. Why does this not want to come out of this bottom? Let me try something else here. Let me take this cap off. There we go. A little bit better there. Take this, smooth it all around. Got a nice thin coating around the whole thing. Perfectly fine. Don't want to go too crazy with it because otherwise it'll get into the cooling system, but that should be plenty. Thread it in by hand. And this is actually an American size. This is 11/16, which of course I only have in 1/2 inch, so I gotta be careful. Remember, you are threading into aluminum here, so you don't want to go crazy with the cheese whiz. Be nice to her. Talk sweet to her. Hey girl, please don't strip. Have a little more respect for yourself. I can change you. See there, it's snug. And then get this level some other way. Give it a nice little that. That should be good. So that's on there now. Beautiful. Next thing we got here is a bleeder screw. This will become important when bleeding the system. Obviously, that's what a bleeder screw is for. Get it started by hand. Okay. Gonna feel real tight right away because there's thread sealant pre-applied on there. And this, which is kind of annoying, is 11/30 seconds. Again, tightening into aluminum. Sweet talker a little bit. Don't gotta use all the gorillas to tighten this down, right? Maybe just like a house cat. There we go. Nice and tight on there. Okay, so next step after this is to install a plug where, come on, where's the plug? Nope, that's the wrong plug. This plug. You install this plug, nice little guy, right next to here where this port isn't used, right? But I'm actually going to be installing shortly here an AEM, not oil temp gauge, even though it says there. It's gonna be a coolant temperature gauge, so I can actually see what my actual coolant temps are and not just a dummy gauge. We're gonna use the sensor they provide in order to plug up that hole. So a couple things to keep in mind here. One, don't need PTFE, but we're using it anyways, just as some insurance. Don't need to get too crazy with the cheese whiz here. Right. Apply it down there, like so. And again, another thing I don't like about this kit so far, but again, this isn't part of it, is that all of these sizes have been standard, right? Not a single thing has been metric. And then this sensor, you gotta get a wrench on. So again, I believe this plug is NPT. And you gotta remember the way the plug is gonna sit in here, right? You got your hose, which is gonna come from here. You want your plug, if you ever need to take this out, to be accessible. And this flat spot is where the plug clips into. So if you get the flat side of the plug on the opposite side of where the barb fitting is, you should be good to be able to clip and unclip this without having to jimmy around too much with the hoses. But we are all set there and ready to put this together. Okay, so next step here is we're making these two pieces become one piece. So get that all girl on there like that. Gonna mix this up here real quick. I already stabbed it, as you can see. It's probably gonna come out pretty quick. Oh yeah. So there is such a thing as too much RTV, just so people know, right? Usually you want to get a thin bead going, cover it evenly, right? This is actually really hard to apply because the surface is so thin. What I'm going to do here is take this, make a proper mess right now, good lord, and just kind of smooth it out, right? Smooth it on out. Is it perfect? Nope. I'm honestly not very good at applying RTV. Just need to be around the bolt holes. Nope. It's gonna get in the bolt holes. Probably. Should it go in the bolt holes? Nope. But that's all she wrote for right now. If you really want to see that squeeze, oh no. Oh no. If you really want to see when you're putting this together here. And yes, you can criticize my RTV skills all you want, that's fine. That's okay. I understand I'm not the best at it. You wanna figure out how this is supposed to go on here. Wait a second. Oh yeah, okay, we're good. Get her on there. Get our bolts started. Doing really well at camera work. If only I had the third bolt. We're gonna take and snug this down now. This is, I think, 5 seconds. Just so you know, this does say 8 foot-pounds, so don't let this thing, don't go full throttle and. So we got this all cleaned up here. Looks pretty nice. The last thing it says, well, actually doesn't say on the instructions, but this is the OEM sensor and actually goes right into this thermostat housing here. It actually comes with, very cool here, a crush washer. Is it the perfect fit? No. But I guess if I center it, I can make it work. Didn't want to use the OEM one. I'm also going to use thread sealant because why not? Oh, dang it. Okay, I lied. This copper O-ring that comes with the kit isn't for the sensor. It's actually for the plug if you're not going to use the sensor. So I had to go in my supply and find a crush washer for this, which I did. I also don't know if you're supposed to use a Teflon tape. I kind of don't think so, but I don't know. I used it anyways. We'll see what happens. But yeah, there we go. This whole thing is complete to go in, besides the fact that I need to put sealant around here. But again, per the instructions, it says to practice. Practice getting it in there a couple times so that you're not just wiping off all the sealant as you're going in there. So that's what I'm going to do. Probably delay the inevitable a little bit. Probably eat some dinner. Probably cry a little bit. And then I'm gonna go cramp my hand up and get really cold and everything else. Yeah, but super nice piece. Super quality. Nice. Okay, so gonna make this quick because I just applied RTV. I had to move my breather hose out of the way, and also the tab that holds the speedo cable out of the way. Had to hammer that back a little bit, but other than that, got our RTV on. What we're gonna do this here is again make sure you have your breather, the bigger end hose toward that end, and the smaller hose toward your heater hoses. That's how it orients. I found it easiest to slide it around the top, push that out of the way, slowly start to bring it down. Remember to breathe. Continuously push it, and from there, you can't see it from your angle, but I can see it from mine. I can just barely see the hose, or the hole for the bottom hose, or for the stud, and then from there, you're home free. I'm sorry, that was a really poor explanation because I was kind of doing that little blind here, but you could just, if you angle it toward you a little bit, you can just barely see There we go. Just barely see the stud to get the stud lined up. And from there, honestly, it's not that bad. I got the stud on one side and I got the bolt on the other. I just gotta tighten these up real quick, and that whole apparatus is on there. That's the hard part. Done, thankfully. Well, not done, I gotta tighten it down, but nearly done. So let me time lapse through this. Okay, with that in there and RTV drying, we now move to the front. So this is the water neck that you're going to end up replacing with the thermostat in it from the factory. So this is all other jazz that I'm not ecstatic about, but it is what it is. We'll get that later. But if you look at this, right, there's supposed to be 2 bolts. This is a temperature sensor that snapped off a long time ago before I even owned it. Then we go to the other side. Uh-oh, that's a problem. I need to see if I can either drill that out or weld the nut to it and get that out. But I may just be able to take this one off and get this out and then deal with it from there. So let's, ain't nothing to it but to do it, right? So they give you a little block off plate for it. It is, I believe it's this one. There is a hole for the OEM temperature sensor, which I'm not using, and then for another sensor too, which again I'm not using. So to block both these off, I'd like to use this one, which goes directly to the block and deletes the whole water neck altogether. But I'm sure, as you saw, I'm using this for the water lines for my turbo, and then I have not deleted the idle air control valve. So, or at least one of them. I know that's supposedly helps with idle and pulse width modulation, which based on coolant temps. I don't know. I'm not a big technological wizard. I'm just a dude. So this dude is gonna get to work. Okay, so got that housing off. That bolt actually wasn't that bad to get out. I just squeezed out with some pliers or some vicey grips. No, did it that way. I don't know how that broke off or why nobody attempted to extract that before, but you know, it is what it is. So now we've got our block off plate here, put on our 2 plugs. Not that bad, right? And they don't give you a gasket to put there, so just use some sealant, right? Not that difficult to do. Same thing I've done through the rest of this modification. I mean, it's kind of like a repair. Oh boy, that's a lot. That's a lot. Come on now, give up a little bit more, would you? Looks like they give you just enough. Except, you know, they're not measuring out these packets. It's Permatex. But they're only thinking you're using it for thermostat housing or 2 or what have you. Technically, you're doing 2 thermostat housings here because you got the front and the back. I'm just spitballing at this point, just making filler, right? So I like to do the dab technique. We just kind of keep going and dabbing as you go along. Right, creates a nice ridge so that when I set something down on top of it, it's gonna schmoo out. Right? And once you schmoo, you know you're sealed. Why that's not our or Permatex's logo or motto? I don't know. But see, look, you know, you got that. You take your cover plate here, set her down on there, nice and light. I got 2 new bolts here because the one was super rusty and the other one was, you know, broken. Got those in there, right? Got them started. Got those tightened down. And you see how it schmooed out the sides? So you know you're sealed. Not a crazy concept there, but yeah, schmooed, sealed. Nice. So we got the front blocked off and we got the rear opened up. So technically, the coolant rerouted. Very cool. As much as I want to just hook up that hose and then see if everything leaks, because there will be leaks, I just took apart almost the entirety of the cooling system besides the water pump. I can't. That's because we gotta wait for that sealant to dry. Given the fact that it is currently, oh, actually it's 38 degrees in the garage, above freezing. But I know that below, outside, it's about 7, supposedly. So, I gotta call it a night tonight. But next time I'm out here, we get to test for leaks and everything else and show you guys how to do that. Fortunately, I have a pretty fancy tool to do it, but you know, I got that going. The AEM coolant temp sensor, that'll be another video, just because this would be very long with that install as well. So yeah, I guess until next time, right? Right. Okay, so it's the next day. And by next day, I mean actually 3 weeks from the last clip that I recorded. That's because life happens and the weather has been below 0. Whew. Yeah, but today, it's 50 degrees in the garage. Pretty crazy. So where do we leave off? Well, we're RTV'd on the front, RTV'd on the back, and now all we gotta do is run a hose from somewhere over there to here. And we're done. The hose they provide is actually a very nice hose as I meander over to the other side of the garage to grab it. This big old boy. Nice. Anyways, so we're gonna put this guy in the car and figure out how the heck we need to trim this. This needs to be trimmed, it needs to be routed. Now luckily, let's see if I can do this whole clip with this in my head. Luckily, we have got a whole bunch of room on this side. They give us clips and zip ties and stuff to be able to zip tie everything to, because this is just kind of a normal silicone pipe. And we're gonna figure out what the best way to do it. Per the kit, this comes long. We're gonna need to cut it. I've got some tricks to do that, but to be fair, it's really just gonna be a razor blade and me hacking at it, because I'm not very good at cutting these things. But the hardest thing is going to be taking this hose and tightening it to the back nipple. Yes, I said nipple. So by that, I mean, and this video is going to be long enough, it's probably going to be somewhere around an hour. As you can see, we have the water neck on the back there, and it's directly below that cam angle sensor right there. So we're gonna need to figure out how to jimmy that on there, as well as jimmy on the hose and a hose clamp. Really trying to not take that sensor out, but we might have to because it is tight back there. So let's see what I do, I guess. All right, so I'm a little under the weather now because it's now the next day, but we got that hose on. As you can see here, routed very nicely. I left it a little bit longer just in case I need to trim it down. I want to keep it out of the way of the fuel line so I don't have to move this hose around when I'm doing that jazz. But I had to put it in from this side, kind of guide it in a little bit. And then I was actually able to take and get the hose clamp right. Oh, you can't even see it. Do I have a flashlight? Yeah. You can't even see the hose clamp. That's incredible. I was just able. Oh, you can. Right there, right by my thumb. Right there. You're just barely able to get a socket in there to be able to tighten it up, and you're good to go. So got this hose trimmed down, like I said, and now we are on to finding leaks. So right now I've got this fancy system on here. It's called Airlift, and what it does is it runs a vacuum test on the cooling system. Pretty much what it does, air blows past here at however high my shop air is, 100 psi, and then sucks the air out of the system. Then you close it, and you want to make sure this needle doesn't move. You set a timer for like 5-10 minutes, make sure it doesn't move, and then should stay somewhere in the green. I started at 25, and 5 minutes later I'm already at 15. So we have a small leak somewhere, and hopefully it's an easy fix. But really the easiest thing to do is either listen around for, you're gonna hear the air leaking out a little bit, or you take some soapy water, spread around all your hose clamps and connections and everything, and you'll be able to find the leak done. So I gotta start looking. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's what I found out. Because I do not have the correct adapter for this radiator, I had to make this cone adapter and another adapter work, and there's actually bubbles in between these two adapters, which means my leak is coming from the tester, which kind of makes this test invalid. But if I push on it hard enough, it does seal and it doesn't leak, which means I should be good. Now, what's left to do on this coolant reroute? Absolutely nothing. We're all good. The only thing I have left to do now is replace these blue hoses, and you don't need to see me do that. So with all that being said, I think it's finally time to close out this video I've been working on for well over a month. I apologize it's taking this long, but quite obviously, it's been a lot of work. I've also kept this a lot more raw because I wanted people to see how much of a struggle this really was, and as you can see, it wasn't really that much of a struggle at all. Just having a little bit of patience. It's really what it is. You can't really do this, well, you can do it in a weekend, honestly. I just wish I had an entire weekend to work on it, but I didn't. It is what it is. Been picking at it here and there. So, if you liked the video, give it a like. If you really liked the video, consider subscribing. I appreciate each and every one of you that do.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns, birthdays, maybe even a bar mitzvah, let me know down in the comments. I like to hear from you guys, and I'll get back to you if I can. Usually I do. I really, really try to, because if you go out of your way to comment, I'll go out of my way to respond back, right? I feel like that's the right thing to do. So, get out there, burn that midnight oil, do what you want to do to your car or truck. I don't judge. Don't listen to the internet. Do what makes you happy, right? I think that's just the right thing to do. Catch y'all in the next one. Later.